I took over this farm about 10 years ago, and we grew up here. I grew up here, farming sheep traditionally here. And in that, I'm not that old, so in that short period of time, there's already more tree cover here. We're already managing and custodians of a more vibrant system that has a far healthier bottom line than it did in the past. So my name is John Duffy. We're here in the Derry Mountains in the centre of Donegal. We're just to the south of Glen Bay National Park, and we run a project, a regenerative farming project called Future Oak Farm. We're a cattle-based enterprise, but we were traditionally a sheep farm, and we practice something called Holistic Plan Grazing. And the idea is that we use these livestock as ecosystem successional triggers to support regeneration of the local ecosystem. In total, we're on about 120 acres, but we're actually across 8 sites in this mountain chain. From point to point, it's probably spread across 3 miles. We've got Garton Lake right in the middle of it as well. So from a management perspective, it's quite difficult. It's a logistical challenge, let's say. Parts of the farm are mineral soil and have reasonably good grass pasture. Most of it actually looks like this. So it's somewhere between heath, acid grassland, wet kind of peaty soils, heavy soils. Elevation-wise as well, we've got one site that drops 120 meters elevation across 40 acres as well. So we've got south-facing aspects, north-facing aspects. We've got a lot of weather coming in from the west, and we get about 2,500 mil, 2,800 mil of rain a year, as you can see. So in this particular system, we practice something called Holistic Plan Grazing, and a big part of that is essentially mimicking the predator-prey dynamics that wild herbivores have. So in the wild, herbivores are kept bunched together and moving, and we mimic that today using electric fences. What that means on the ground in real terms is that when grass grows fast, we bunch the animals together and we move them fast, and for us that's daily moves. As I said, we're in a regenerative farm, but more than that, our goal is to be a zero-input farm. So we're not interested in buying any external feed. We're not interested in housing animals during the winter and all the additional workload and overhead that comes with that. We're looking for animals that can look after ourselves. These are belted Galloway genetics with a little bit of this and that mixed in as well, but they really, really suit our system. Trees are a big part of the system here. We're in the Derry Mountains, Knock Vaha. So at one point in the past, there was a reason why these were called the Hills of Oak and Birch, and we're trying to work back towards that. So we have about 15% of the land that we have under our tenure is native woodland cover / regeneration in one form or another. Now some of that's much older, characterized by the presence of oak, ash, hazel, holly, and some of it's much younger, kind of pioneer wet woodland, scrub woodland. And on one part of the farm, we have a designed agroforestry system as well. So our agroforestry system is kind of triple layered. So there's, on that particular site, it's quite open and exposed to the west. So our prime objective there initially was to slow wind speed and create shelter. So we've planted a shelter belt of trees around the outside of the site, and an internal belt as well is currently establishing that in time will provide shelter across the entire site, regardless of wind direction. The second element of the farm are these kind of essentially parallel tree lanes, but they're in a kind of a funky pattern, which helps us manage water flow around the site. As I said before, we get a lot of rain in this part of the world, so we're really looking to get that water to infiltrate as quickly as possible, rather than turning into overland flow and causing issues elsewhere. So the benefit that I see for integrating tree systems with the farm, first of all, is improving water cycle. So trees are like nature's pumps. So they are, through their process of evapotranspiration, they're pulling water from the soil, running it up through their own structure and out through the leaf. But that in turn is drawing oxygen into the soil and allowing that gas exchange to take place. And that very action, their very presence there, actually improves local grass growth. You get this kind of zone of influence around the bottom of a tree. So with the presence of a tree that's maturing in a pasture setup, you're improving the quality of grass around it, which is obviously better for the bottom line in terms of profitability for our operation, better for the cows. The second thing about that is its access to forage. It's a diversity of forage. So we do find in most of our areas these kind of wild seams that we crash graze different times during the year. The cows really love it, actually. They get up and they're achieving a different mineral balance by grazing on the leaf and the shoot of these trees, as opposed to just giving them a single kind of diet of grasses. And the third part of it then is shelter creation. You know, we're in, pretty close to the coast here. We're at elevation. Most of our sites are exposed. So any site, any opportunity we have at all to create shelter allows us to keep animals out with a degree of comfort in more extreme weather. And we're seeing that with climate change, of course. Yeah, so I mean, as I've already said, we see nothing but upside to the presence of trees in these systems. In terms of like schemes and government supports and things, the two that really stood out for us and we were really hopeful for was the native woodland grants, the establishment grants, and also the agroforestry system grants. And we've been unable, despite serious efforts on our part, we've been unable to access any of those due to a number of reasons. With the agroforestry grant in particular, its previous inception and its current inception, we find that the first kind of barrier is that local foresters in this part of the country don't seem to be kind of conversant enough upon it. And although they may see it from the trees perspective, what we're trying to do is fully integrate a livestock production system and a grazing platform with trees. And that requires a degree of expertise and kind of holistic, kind of all-round thinking that seems to be not quite there at the moment. The second is we need a bit of flexibility in terms of how these schemes are actually implemented. So rather than this fixed mindset of I need 400 stems per hectare, or whatever the number is, on a fixed grid, we need to get away from that, because we need systems that fully integrate with how we move our animals through a landscape in the year. We need considerations about weather systems. Do we get most of our weathers from the west or from the south? Or what's happening locally in our topography? What's happening with water as it moves across the site? All of these needs to be factored into a good design for an agroforestry system. The current scheme just doesn't make any case for that at all. I took over this farm about 10 years ago, and we grew up here. I grew up here, farming sheep traditionally here. And in that, I'm not that old, so in that short period of time, there's already more tree cover here. We're already managing and custodians of a more vibrant system that has a far healthier bottom line than it did in the past. So our goal here is to think much farther beyond our timeline. It's actually to begin to think intergenerationally now. So we need to be thinking forward in time. What's my landscape going to look like? Not in 3 years or 5 years, because that's a subsidy mindset. You know, that's our kind of idea of where's the next pound coming from in terms of subsidies and grants. We need to be thinking far more long-term about this. So when I picture this farm 50 years, 100 years, 200 years into the future, I picture a farm with significantly more tree cover that's carrying more stock than ever and is more profitable than ever. And the kind of keystone to that whole vision is more trees on the land.